Hello, and welcome back to Patient Conversations with Leah. Today, on our episode, we are speaking with Ashley again. We heard from her on our last episode about kind of the journey she's taken in her diagnosis, being that she is young without a biomarker. And we also talked a little bit about clinical trials. So if you missed that episode, you might want to go back and watch that one because it was pretty interesting. And today, I am going to be talking to Ashley about kind of how perspective changes for someone who is young and healthy and like seems like overnight, although it can be a long diagnosis process. Your
Mhm.
life changes because you're handed a late stage cancer diagnosis and just kind of what that is like. So, Ashley, if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us, like, how did you feel when you heard the word stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis?
It's all kind of a blur, to be honest. A part of me was relieved at first, maybe not the stage 4 piece, but like finally, I'm not crazy. It's not just anxiety. There is something very clinically wrong with me. So I think my initial response was relief. I don't remember feeling fear at first, and maybe that's like denial, but I was like, let's do it. Let's go. Like, I was ready to like fight it, and I was like ready to fight and I wanted treatment. I was like, my body needs this. It's been like begging for something, and this is the treatment I need. So it took some time, I think, for me to realize the gravity of what a stage 4 with no biomarkers means initially, because we're told, like, I don't know about you, but I always thought like you're diagnosed with cancer, you go through chemotherapy. That's the only treatment. You go through chemotherapy and then you're cured or you die. Like, I thought that was the only two options. And I didn't know that there are many people like yourself that are living, maybe thriving with a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis with and without biomarkers. So it took me a bit of time to realize what that meant and how my life was forever changed. Yeah.
And I agree too, because, I knew plenty of people with cancer and had been around it, but I thought the same thing. It was going to be chemo. Like this whole
Yeah.
idea of the targeted therapy was, and not that you had that option, but with a biomarker, like I just assumed everyone did chemo. Like you see the commercials for chemos, you see the commercials for like Keytruda, and you just kind of think,
Mhm.
that's what I'm going to do. That's what everybody does. And your whole life changes. And I think your perspective changes. So tell us a little bit about how your life perspective changed over this time period.
How much time do we have? I could go on and on about this. I can ramble on about this for days. This diagnosis has shifted my entire perspective and outlook on life. I think I spent the majority of my 20s like grinding, trying to make it, like trying to build my career and really, make something of myself. And that was my priority, was productivity. And that's how I found value. And that's how I felt important and needed. And it was like my whole life was being productive, right? In this capitalistic society that we have. Because that's what we're taught. Like that's how, that should be our focus, is making money and building a career and yada yada. After a diagnosis, you can't really do that. So I think my priorities shifted from being productive to being like present oriented. Like, what is important to me today? What adds value today? What brings me joy today? And often those are, you know, family and relationships and finding gratitude and like really slowing down and being in the moment. And, because of that, my hobbies have shifted, relationships have changed, my relationship with myself has changed. And I don't think any of that would have happened without a cancer diagnosis.
No, I agree. Like you're right, it does. It does shift. And I think even from like making, as a parent, as a mom, you're trying to make you want to make everything memorable and happy for your child. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you get wrapped into the things that they're doing, like how many sports are they involved in, or do they have
Yes.
the latest and greatest Lego set that they want? And while that
Mm-hmm.
still is important to them and makes them happy, I think you quickly realize that you're going to leave them with memories. That's what they're going to, even
Yes.
if it's not soon, even if you lived 100, what you're
Mhm.
leaving your child and your siblings and your friends are the memories.
Yeah,
And I think that kind of drives more of what your decisions are.
totally.
um, for sure. I
Yeah.
think I noticed too, relationships kind of changed. And I know you kind
Hmm.
of mentioned that. So kind of what is your take on relationships with how have relationships changed? You don't even have to be specific with one person, but just in
Yeah.
general.
I started realizing a lot of, not a lot, but some of my relationships weren't bringing me joy. In fact, they were making me miserable, feel miserable. So I really had to start listening to my body when I was around people. Like, do I feel uneasy? Am I stressed out? And sort of distance from those people because we need to prioritize our health over, other people's feelings. That includes our own oncologist, FYI. Like, we always need to prioritize our health first. So, um, I also like really value spending real quality time with people. And I always have, but I'm recognizing it more now. Like I don't just want to be in someone's orbit. I want to like make direct eye contact with them and share our feelings and talk about, meaningful things and play board games and like go make experiences, like do things, like really connect with people in my life. And honestly, it really affects me when I'm around people now. And like, I can see they don't want that with me. It really
Yeah.
affects me because I'm like, I don't know how much time I have with you. I want to make the most out of every single moment I have with everyone in my life. Like, that's so important to me now. And especially my children, like you said, like quality, meaningful time, like making memories, taking the vacations, like doing things with your kids to build those memories.
Yeah. And I like how you said, you had to evaluate relationships, and are they positive and fulfilling, or are they just, I call them life sucking? Like, it's just,
Yes.
they don't give any meaning to your life. It's
Hmm.
a lot of times it was surface relationships, but I do think, and I don't know if you felt this way or not, but even some people that I was very close to, I felt like I had to do like kind of an examination of the relationship itself just to see
Hmm.
if this was something that I should continue. And
Yeah.
it's very interesting. And I think I've talked to some other patients too, and you might kind of have some like insight on this too. The way people respond to you when they find out your diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
also, I think, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but can change like the dynamics of a relationship easily.
100%. Like, I feel really grateful that most of the people in my life, like, especially working in hospice, I am a social worker. So we have been around death and dying, right? Like, I've watched people die, I've been there after their death. And that changes your perspective, not as much as actually like being diagnosed with cancer, but so a lot of my friends knew how to show up for me, right? So they showed up in ways that I needed, which I'm very grateful for. Yeah, like relationships shift and you realize what's important to you and what you want out of a relationship,
Yeah.
for
And I
sure.
like where you mentioned even your relationship with yourself has changed
Mm.
through this. So explain maybe to the viewers like what you mean by your relationship with yourself.
I think honoring my body, honoring my intuition, and really letting that guide me. Like I feel like I've always been led by my intuition, but I've had to really like work that muscle. So like, spending time meditating and like doing, more grounding activities like gardening or walking or deep breathing or things that I can connect in with myself and like honor my body that has been through so much the last few years. I often say I feel like I don't know how old I look. I'm 37, but I
You look
feel like I'm
25.
85. Thank you. Nothing wrong with aging. My body feels like it's maybe 80 years old. So like honoring the slowness and like listening to my body is something I talk about a lot on my platform, but like I do struggle with listening to my body often when it comes to like physical activities, but it's something I'm working on. But just like loving myself fully, like truly loving myself and not trying to like change anything or be any more than I am, but like truly like honoring and loving and being grateful for my body,
Yeah,
so
I
important.
mean, so many people, especially young people, and I'm guilty of it too, don't even like you kind of take it for granted. And then all of a sudden you're faced with this like, what if my body is doing something I don't want it to do and I have no control over it.
Mhm.
And I think that is an interesting spot to be in at a young age because other
It
people that you're
is.
with really can't even like understand. And I mean, it really is your whole perspective, like
Mhm.
listening to people complain about things, silly things. And I'm like, really, this is not a big problem.
Yes, I
When
know.
when the kids were little, we always talked about big problems and small problems. Just,
Mhm.
your cookie breaks and you burst into tears. Is this a big problem or
Yeah,
is this a small problem?
love
So my
that.
kids have always been used to that. And sometimes I want to say to these adults, is this a big problem or a small
Yeah.
problem? Because I can show you a big problem.
Exactly. And like to talk about perspective changes, like that is a big one, honestly. I'm like, this isn't really a big deal.
Yeah,
Like, in the large scheme of things, like people are dying, you
right.
know? People are
Yeah,
dying. Like, I have lung cancer. I'm not worked up about this. Let's just love each other. As corny as that sounds, like
well,
let's just focus on, loving each other and showing up for each other, like it just completely changes your
yeah,
outlook on life.
totally. Like live each day to its fullest and,
Hmm.
things that seemed like the grind of, "Oh, I'm driving carpool again. How many times am I going to
Yeah.
go to soccer practice?" Now I'm
Hmm.
like, I love going to soccer practice because I get this
Yes.
time in the car. And in
Hmm.
some ways, as devastating as this is to all of us that are living with it, it also gives you some things that we may not have had or at least not have found
Yes.
at this age.
Yeah, there were times, especially like when I had hepatitis, I recently had the flu or going through chemo, like so much fatigue. At times I felt like I was dying. I could not get off my own couch. I could not tend to my children and my cats and my laundry and my dishes. And like I remember laying on my couch and just thinking, all I want to do is my dishes. I just want to clean my house. I want to do my laundry. I want to like sweep my floors. And when I was able to actually do those things, I was like, wow. I have enough energy and enough strength and will to do my damn dishes. And like that, who is grateful to do dishes?
Right,
No one. But it
right.
shifts your perspective when you're unable to do things, and all you want to do is just live your life. Like,
Hmm.
you don't want to do anything extraordinary. I just want to be able to live my life,
Right.
you
No,
know?
I totally get it. I think this will be a good like reminder to people even not diagnosed with cancer, just that think about your perspective on life. It's a gift. Life is a gift. You never
Yes,
know. I mean, we could die from lung cancer or we could go out and get hit by a car. We don't know. But at
totally.
least
Yeah.
we have the sense of appreciation for what we have, the time we have, and the
Hmm.
relationships we're building. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate your insight on perspective because it is a unique place to be in.
It
I know
is.
when we were talking a little bit, as I've said before, this is a multi-part series with Ashley, and we're going to actually do a third part with her. And our third part is going to be more about our children. And so she's mentioned children and the perspective we have about spending time with them and making the memories. So please make sure you stay tuned for the next episode that will deal more with kind of how this affects our parent-child relationship and the kids and whatnot. But Ashley, I really want to thank you today for kind of just putting it out there and sharing that intimate side of your life and how things have changed with cancer.
Yeah. And thank you for like providing this platform for people like me to share our experiences.
I'm happy to do it.
So important. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.